Hi, welcome to Super Awesome Film Club, episode 37. My name is Adelaide Blair, and I will be your host tonight. Our lone panelist tonight is Blair-Freese. She is our movie philosopher. Hi, Io.
Hello.
So we are beginning a 4-part series on mother and daughter films. If you are not aware, Io and I are in fact mother and daughter. I would be the mother, although I think that's pretty obvious. Our first movie is Mildred Pierce, and it's from 1945, and it is directed by Michael Curtiz. It stars Joan Crawford as Mildred Pierce, Jack Carson as Wally Fay, Zachary Scott as Monty Barragan, Eve Arden as Ida, and Anne Blythe as Beta Pierce. Okay, open scene on a murder. A moida. Okay, so it starts out, there's a murder of Monty Barragan, and all the interested parties get pulled into the police station, and Monty's wife, Mildred, is the center of the film, and they're like fingering her first husband to be the murderer, but she's like, no, it can't be him, which she knows, because she knows who the murderer is, and it's definitely not Bert, her first husband. So then it does flashbacks on her life with Bert and how he can't really provide for her because he loses his job, and she's all about the kids. Like, her life is her 2 children, Beta and Kay. And she just says, everything is about these 2 kids. We come second. You have to suck that up and do it. And, you know, he's a dude. He wants some loving. He wants to feel special in his home, but she's all like, no, I only care about the kids. So he goes up and hangs out with this lady, Mrs. Biederhofer, which is one of my favorite movie names of all time. I need to put that out there. And so Mildred goes out and gets a job as a waitress, and she figures out how this is done. She's a really good cook herself. So she decides to open her own restaurant. And in order to do this, she has to enlist the help of her husband's former business partner, Wally Fay. And Wally, well, he'd like a little piece of Mildred is what he'd really like. But he will accept part ownership of her business. So he helps her out and helps her get a mortgage from this guy, Monty Barragan, or not from him, but she wants Monty to like let her buy this old house he has to put her first restaurant in. Well, he does that, but then they fall in love, and she starts making money hand over fist, and Monty, he's the idle rich who's not so rich anymore. So he starts taking handouts from Mildred, but Mildred's okay with that for a while. Now, parallel to this, her daughter Vita has been growing up, and she is not a nice person. She wants to be something that she's not. So she wants to live the life that Monty's been brought up to, which is, fine food, good company. And by all good company, I mean rich. And so she really latches onto Monty as a guide on how she should live her life, which is fine with Mildred because Mildred puts her daughters first, and then she wants to give Vita everything she wants. And right before this, her daughter Kay dies, and that's really sad. And it is, in fact, the only time you ever see Vita caring about any other person is when her sister dies. I assume that her tears were real. But anyway, so Mildred is like, Monty, you're a really bad influence on my daughter. And, basically you're just a gigolo and I don't want to deal with you anymore. So Monty's like, okay, fine. And she pays him off and he goes away. But Vita doesn't like this, and she wants to get away from her mother, so she hatches this plot to marry this millionaire heir, and against his parents' wishes, so they end up having to pay her off to go away because she fakes a pregnancy. And then when Mildred figures it out, she tears up the $10,000 check that they wrote to Vita. And Vita's like, I'm leaving, I'm never coming back. I've always just wanted to get away from you, mother. Which Mildred is really confused because she's done everything that she can for this kid. She's been over backwards. On the other hand, she lets Vita get away with murder.
Quite literally.
Quite literally. Oh, yeah, by the way, we're full of spoilers here at Super Awesome Film Club. Should have mentioned that beforehand. So Vida gets a job as a lounge singer. Mildred freaks the fuck out and says, you know, if I can make my life everything that you want, will you come back? And Vita's like, no, no. But Mildred goes and basically buys Monty Barragan and marries him and gives her 1/3 of her business. And then Vida comes back. She's like, I love you. What she really means is, I love this big house. I love all these servants. And then things happen. Monty screws Mildred Pierce over, as does Wally Fay. But Wally Fay doesn't really want to. But, you know, Wally Fay will do what he has to do to make his money. And so, long story short, Vida shoots Monty. Mildred is willing to take the rap for it, or blame Wally Fay if she can get that happen. But in the end, Mildred can no longer stand up to Vida's horribleness. So she tells the cops what she knows. But Vida will be fine because she's fucking insane. Okay, Aya, what did you think of this movie?
I like the cleverness of this movie. The way that the movie, like the pacing of the movie, the way that it opens up and the way that it moves through the story, it doesn't give too much away. Like, the mystery is still there pretty much. Like, you start to have suspicions at the end, but the mystery is still there up until the very end, which is, I think, great, because they do, you know, where they play the ending scene, or the first scene is like way later in the film, and then they work up to it. So I really like that aspect of it. I also think that if we're just talking about it as a film without the content, I think it was really well shot for something like, usually when you watch movies from the 1940s, they're very glamorous. Everybody's glamorous and dressed up and, you know, looking extra beautiful and sharp. But this movie is about working class people. And for the most part, with the exception of Vida, who always looks glamorous and beautiful and like your normal kind of 1940s noir trope, like everybody else in the film is very normal. Like, I think that the characters are just, the scenes are very normal looking, and the characters, all of the adult characters, are very normal looking, which I thought
mean, Joan Crawford's a very beautiful woman, but they don't glam her up. Like, she is, I mean, she looks like an exceptionally attractive, normal woman. Right,
right.
Yeah.
She is exceptionally beautiful, but she's definitely not your, like, glamour noir heroine.
Yeah.
She's just she's a beautiful working woman. And I thought that that was just really nice. And, you know, having like sets that look like real homes made it very, like, at least in the beginning of the movie, made it very realistic in the film watching, which sometimes when I watch older films and they have, you know, all of the really ornate furniture and the beautiful scenes and the dressed up people, it doesn't feel like something that I can always buy into. And this movie does have that element of realism. Vida is crazy, but it's hard because obviously her mother had a part in raising her. And so it's hard to know whether or not you feel bad for Mildred or Vida, because Mildred, on the one hand, did give Vida everything she wanted and spent all of her attention on, I'm sure, her firstborn child for a very long time. And so she does have that spoiled attitude, but she also has something that Mildred doesn't. And that's this idea that she, like, belongs in a class above Mildred. And I don't know that that's necessarily taught by her mother. Mm-hmm. And that's where I start to think, like, there's a scene where Mildred slaps Vida, and you're not, like, it leaves it very ambiguous of whose side you're supposed to be on, because Vida's being a bitch, but a mother should never slap her daughter. However, I do feel sympathy, because I think that Vida's humanity is definitely at question because of her classism, because of the way that she looks at not only her mother, but the world around her as something that should just be kind of given to her because she deserves it. Not because maybe that was instilled by her mother, but maybe some other thing. They don't really talk about her relationship with her father, or maybe it was Monty's influence. It's really hard to say.
Yeah, and that's the point I want to talk about more. Like, is this Mildred's fault? Towards later on, after I talk about all the crap I love about this movie. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, go ahead and talk about the crap you like.
Okay, one of the things I really like is how every single character is really finely drawn. Like, so Ida is fast talking and smart as a whip, you know, but she's a peripheral character, but just her well-roundedness as a character adds so much to the story. I totally forgot the maid's name, but she's...
Bonnie?
Pardon?
Is it Bonnie?
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I feel really bad because that actress is really good. And I meant to look it up and I didn't. But she's just very, I mean, just, she's one of the smarter people in this movie, and nobody gets her little jokes. And I just think that's really funny. And then there's even the little girl who plays Kay. Like, every single character is really just a perfect encapsulation and very well acted. My favorite is Jack Carson, who plays Wally. So Jack Carson made his career doing light comedic roles for the most part. And he's so great in this because he's very funny, but with a real steely core of sleaze. You know what I mean? Like, he's always on the make, whether it's for sex or for booze or for money. And you do not get between Wally Fay and a dollar bill. Like, I mean, he wants his cut. You know, he'd take a little booty too, but he wants his cut. And I just think Jack Carson is wonderful in this role. And I've always enjoyed him as a comedic actor. But, you know, seeing him in this always makes me think what would have happened if he'd had some better roles.
One of my favorite scenes was in the opening where he goes in to kiss Mildred and she smacks the glass out of his hand and he just kind of plays it off like, hey, what'd you do that for? Oh, I still want some booty anyway.
Yeah, like he's, you know, he's like one of those guys, you know, who asks every girl they see because the odds are, you know, 99 might say no, but one might say yes. So he reminds me of that, and he's just so good. I mean, I mentioned Eva Arden as Ida, and I just love her. I think Joan Crawford is amazing in this. I think this was her comeback movie where she hadn't been doing so well, and this really brought her to a great point. I think Anne Blythe is amazing as Vita. She's so horrible. But
Very good.
she's just really bad. And I really like how this is a really good combination of film noir and a woman's picture, because it's got all the dark elements of the murder mystery, but it's got all of the heightened melodrama of a woman's picture. And I think that, I mean, that's actually one of my favorite types of film noir, is the ones that have a lot of melodrama in them, a lot of soap opera. And this really satisfies me on every level. I think stylistically, it's really beautiful. They use a lot of shadows where you don't see the people, you just see their shadows interacting. And I think that's really lovely. And also, there's a moment when Kay is still alive, when she is wrapped up in the turban and the scarf, singing like a show tune kind of song, which gets echoed later on when Vita becomes a nightclub singer. Yeah. And so it's just little touches like that, story-wise, that really make this like a great movie.
Yeah.
I think that's all I wanted to say, other than, you know, like, so Vita pretty much tells Mildred it's her fault. And I've always just, you know, like, and Mildred feels like it's her fault. But, you know, you get the sense that had Kay grown up with all the advantages that Vita had, that there's no way she would have turned out this way.
They were very different children, to be sure. Like, their personalities were set out to be very differing at the beginning, I think, to give you that extra sense of, you know, questioning.
Yeah, because I think my point, and this is something that sort of I had to come to as an adult, and I think a lot of people have to come to, is that, you know, your parents do raise you, and for good or for bad, they have influence on your character. But when you become an adult, you kind of have to accept responsibility for what you're doing. You can't just because I got everything I always wanted, or just because I got nothing that I ever wanted, that doesn't justify bad behavior on my part.
Yeah.
And, you know, so for me, ethically, I don't think Vita's argument has any merit. What do you think?
I would agree. And like I said, I think that there's got to be another element to it too. There's something like that I don't think that she could have ever gotten that sense of like holier than thou, I deserve everything, just from the way that Mildred treated her, because while she did give her the world, she didn't spoil her in such a way that it was like, oh, you deserve better than this lifestyle. Like, it was, no, her mother was working hard to give her that lifestyle. And I think that Vita just took it way too far, and at a certain point could have stopped herself and did not ever stop.
Yeah, I think Vita might just be a little psychopath.
Yeah.
You know, kind of entitled. Yeah, just yeah. And as all, you know, any good film noir has a good psychopath behind it. So,
although Mildred did give her 17-year-old daughter a car, which, being once a 17-year-old young woman, don't get a nice car that's worth any money for your young girl, because she will drive it into everything.
Including her stepfather's car.
Including her stepfather's car on her graduation day.
But we do not speak from personal experience. Oh, no.
So maybe Mildred was also kind of crazy.
Yeah, Mildred loved Vita just a little too much, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank everybody for watching. We will be back in 2 weeks, and we will be continuing our mother-daughter theme with Mommy Dearest. We're going from bad daughter to bad mothers. Okay, thank you. Watch the skies, everybody.
Drink beer, it's got vitamins.